The late autumn wind swept across Incheon International Airport, carrying the faint scent of rain and jet fuel. Han Aryam stepped off the plane, her palms damp, her chest heavy with a mixture of dread and hope. She had not set foot in Korea since she was 3 years old. Her memories were little more than fragments, echoes of a language she had forgotten, and a mother's lullaby that no longer had a face. Aryam had spent most of her life in Toronto, where everything about her was both accepted and questioned. She was the quiet Korean girl with perfect grades, the one who never quite fit in. When her adoptive mother died 2 years ago, something cracked open inside her. She began to dig through adoption records, through online forums, through letters written in a language she could not read. It was through one of those letters that she found the name Han Soyeon, her birth mother. As the taxi left the airport, Seoul unfolded before her eyes. Towers of glass and light, narrow alleys hung with signs in red and blue, the pulse of a city that never seemed to stop breathing. The driver's radio hummed an old ballad. Aryam stared out the window, counting the seconds between streetlights, wondering if somewhere among the millions of strangers, her mother was awake, thinking of her. Her temporary accommodation was a small studio near Mapo, a place recommended by the search agency that had handled her adoption case. The building smelled faintly of fried oil and damp wallpaper. Inside, the room was spotless but soulless, a single bed, a desk, and a large window overlooking the Han River. That night, Aryam could not sleep. She scrolled through her phone, staring at the email from the agency. It contained only 3 lines. Name, Han Soyeon. Address, Mapogu, Seoul. Status, located. Willing to meet. Her heart trembled as she whispered the name again, Soyeon. The word felt foreign and familiar at the same time. She rehearsed what she would say when they met. Would she cry? Would she bow? Would she even recognize the woman who had given her away? The next morning, the sky was the color of gray paper. Aryam dressed carefully, a cream blouse, black trousers, the kind of outfit that made her feel composed even when her stomach was twisting. She bought white chrysanthemums from a street vendor, not knowing if it was appropriate, only that she needed something to hold on to. The address led her to a narrow street lined with old Hanok houses squeezed between modern cafes. Number 12-5 stood at the end, its wooden gate slightly ajar. Her fingers hovered above the doorbell. A tremor ran through her hand as she pressed it. Footsteps approached. The gate creaked open. A woman stood there, mid-50s, with eyes that mirrored Aryam's own. For a moment, the world fell silent. Aryam, the woman whispered, her voice breaking. Aryam could only nod. Han Soyeon reached out, her hands trembling. You came back. Tears welled up, uninvited. Aryam's voice was barely a breath. I found you. The woman stepped aside. Come in. Inside the house, the air was filled with the scent of dried herbs and something faintly medicinal. Photographs lined the walls. A young man in military uniform, a little boy with bright eyes, and a girl Aryam's age, smiling beneath a cherry blossom tree. Han Soyeon gestured for her to sit. You must be tired. I'll make tea. As Aryam looked around, her gaze froze on one of the photographs. The girl beneath the cherry tree. She looked exactly like her. Her chest tightened. She turned towards her mother. Who is she? Han Soyeon's hands paused over the teapot. The silence stretched thin. She's your sister, Soyeon said softly. Your twin. The teacup slipped from Aryam's hand, shattering against the floor. The past she had come to reclaim suddenly no longer belonged to her alone. The air inside the house grew still after the cup shattered. Han Soyeon bent down, hands shaking as she picked up the pieces, whispering apologies that were not just for the broken porcelain. Aryam could only stare at the photograph again. 2 identical girls beneath cherry blossoms, one missing from every other family picture. I have a twin, Aryam murmured, as if testing the words for weight. Soyeon nodded. Her name is Hannah. The name echoed in Aryam's chest. Hannah. The syllables rolled softly, like something long-lost returning to the surface. Where is she now? Her mother hesitated. She lives nearby. But she doesn't know about you. Ariam blinked. She doesn't know I exist? Soyen's silence was an answer. The smell of tea filled the room, steeped too long, bitter. Ariam's thoughts scattered like dust motes in the air. Her life had been a quiet, lonely search for identity, yet all this time, another version of her had been living freely in the same city. That night, back in her small apartment, Ariam lay awake. She replayed her mother's voice, the tremor in it. There was something she wasn't saying. The next morning, she returned to the old street. She stood at a distance, watching the Hannock gate where her mother lived, her heart thudding as she saw another figure approach, a young woman in a gray coat, carrying a bag of tangerines. When she turned, Ariam's breath caught. It was like looking into a mirror. "Hannah." She laughed softly at something her mother said, her movements confident, unguarded. Ariam watched as she stepped inside, unaware that the other half of her stood across the street. When they were gone, Ariam walked away slowly, the November air sharp against her skin. She didn't know what she wanted more, to meet Hannah or to run from her. That night she opened her laptop and began searching. Social media, university websites, local directories. It didn't take long. Hannah, 25, graduate of UA University, currently working at a publishing company in Gangnam. Smiling in every photo, surrounded by friends. Ariam felt something heavy settle inside her. Her twin had everything she had ever wanted: family, belonging, a life untouched by loss. And for the first time since arriving in Seoul, Ariam began to wonder if she should have stayed away. 3 days later, Ariam found herself standing outside a cafe in Gangnam. It was lunchtime, and the street was alive with chatter, the scent of coffee and roasted chestnuts blending in the cold air. She sat by the window, her coat drawn tight, pretending to read a book while her eyes searched every passerby. At 12:30, Hannah appeared. She was radiant in a simple beige coat, her hair loose around her shoulders. She ordered an iced Americano, smiled at the barista, and sat near the window right opposite Ariam, separated only by glass. For a long moment, Ariam forgot to breathe. It was like watching a version of herself who had never been abandoned. She wanted to stand, to speak, to say, "I am you." But fear rooted her to the chair. Then Hannah looked up. Their eyes met through the reflection. A small frown crossed Hannah's face, confusion flickering. Then she looked away, shaking her head as if dismissing a strange thought. Ariam left before their gazes could meet again. Outside, she leaned against a lamppost, her breath trembling. The world seemed both too large and too small. That night, she wrote an email to her mother. "I saw her. She looks happy. Why did you give me away, not her?" The reply came the next morning, only 2 sentences. "There are things you don't understand. Please don't meet her. Not yet." Ariam read the message over and over, each word carving deeper into her. She felt the walls of her small room closing in. She deleted the message, grabbed her coat, and stepped into the cold. She didn't know where she was going, only that she could not bear another night of silence. The bells of Bonjunsa Temple rang softly as Ariam climbed the stone steps. The winter wind tugged at the prayer flags, their colors fading under the gray sky. She had read somewhere that people came here to pray for clarity, for peace. Inside the courtyard, a few visitors knelt before golden statues. Ariam stood uncertain, hands clasped. She whispered her thoughts to the cold air, not sure who might be listening. Then she noticed a woman sweeping near the altar, tall, with kind eyes, dressed in simple gray robes. "You look lost," the woman said gently. Ariam hesitated. "Maybe I am." The monk smiled faintly. "Then you are in the right place. Lost people always find their way here." They spoke for a while, and though Ariam revealed nothing of her story, the woman's words sank deep. "When you search for your beginning," she said, "be ready to meet the darkness that guards it." The sentence lingered long after Ariam left. As she descended the hill, her phone buzzed. An unknown number had sent a message. "Meet me at the Han River. Tonight. 9 p.m. Don't tell anyone." Her pulse quickened. She almost deleted it, but something told her not to. That night, she stood by the river, the city lights flickering across the black water. A figure approached slowly, the sound of heels against pavement. It was Hannah. They faced each other beneath the bridge, the city roaring faintly above. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Hannah tilted her head, studying Ariam. "I saw you at the cafe," she said quietly. "I thought I was hallucinating." Ariam swallowed. "You weren't." Hannah's eyes searched hers. "Who are you?" "I'm your sister." The words hung in the cold air, impossible and undeniable. Hannah took a step back, her face draining of color. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." Ariam's voice trembled. "Ask your mother." Hannah shook her head, disbelief warring with fear.
"No."
"My mother would never." "She's my mother, too." The silence that followed was unbearable. Hannah turned away, gripping the rail. "If this is some kind of game, stop it." Ariam pulled a worn photograph from her pocket, the same image from the cherry tree. "This was taken before I was adopted." Hannah's eyes widened. "Adopted?" "She gave me away." The wind howled through the bridge supports. Hannah's lips parted, but no sound came. At last she whispered, "I need to know the truth." She walked away, her steps quick and uneven. Ariam stood alone, the photograph trembling in her hand, the reflection of two faces rippling across the dark water. Days passed before Hannah called. Her voice was tense, urgent. "Come to the house. Tonight. She's ready to talk." When Ariam arrived, Soyeon was sitting by the kitchen table, her hands clasped tightly. The air felt thick with things unsaid. Hannah stood by the doorway, pale and silent. Soyeon looked up. "I was young."
"Poor."
"Your father left before you were born." She took a shaky breath. "When you were both infants, Hannah fell ill. The doctors said one child might not survive. A man from the adoption agency came. He said if I gave one of you up, the other could receive treatment. I chose to save Hannah." Her voice cracked. "I thought you'd have a better life abroad." Ariam stared, her chest hollow. "You chose between us." Tears ran down Soyeon's face. "I never stopped thinking of you. Not a single day." Hannah turned away, covering her mouth. "You lied to me all my life." "I wanted to protect you," Soyeon whispered. The room filled with the sound of quiet sobbing. Ariam stood. "You didn't protect anyone. You broke all of us." She walked out before anyone could stop her, the door slamming against the frame like a closing verdict. The days after the confession blurred into sleepless nights. Ariam wandered through Seoul like a ghost, her thoughts unraveled. Everywhere she looked, she saw pairs, sisters laughing, mothers scolding, families whole and unbroken. One evening, she sat on the banks of the Han River again, the water black beneath the moon. Her phone buzzed. A message from Hannah. "I don't know how to face her. Or you. But maybe we can talk." They met at a quiet park in Uedo. Hannah looked exhausted, her eyes red. "I hated you for existing," she admitted. "But now I think I hate her more." Ariam shook her head. "Don't." She made a choice she thought would save you. "Then why do I feel like we both died that day?" Neither had an answer. They sat in silence, two strangers sharing the same face, the same ache. When they parted, Ariam felt a fragile thread between them. Not love, not yet, but something that might grow if it survived the storm. A week later, Soyeon collapsed. The doctor said it was stress, her heart weakened from years of guilt. Hannah called Ariam in tears. "She's in the hospital. She keeps asking for you." Ariam hesitated before going. The smell of antiseptic filled her lungs as she entered the ward. Soyeon lay pale against the sheets, oxygen tubes framing her face. When she saw Ariam, she reached out weakly. "My girls," she whispered, "don't hate each other. That would destroy me." Ariam took her hand. For the first time, she saw not a woman who abandoned her, but a mother haunted by her own decision. Hannah stood on the other side of the bed, silent tears falling. Soyeon smiled faintly. "You both have her eyes," the nurse murmured, not realizing the weight of her words. That night, Ariam stayed by her mother's bedside, listening to the steady beep of the monitor, afraid of what silence might mean. Soyan's condition worsened. The doctors spoke in soft voices, their eyes avoiding the daughters. Ariam and Hannah took turns keeping vigil. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they sat in silence. But beneath the quiet, resentment lingered. One night, Hannah whispered, "If she dies, what happens to us?" Ariam stared at the floor. "Maybe we go back to being strangers." Hannah shook her head. "I don't want that." But fate was unkind. At dawn, the monitors went still. Soyan was gone. The sisters stood on opposite sides of the bed, tears streaming silently. For the funeral, they followed tradition, white hanbok, incense smoke curling into the winter air. Neighbors murmured condolences. The sound of the drum echoed in Ariam's chest like a heartbeat fading away. When it was over, Hannah approached. "She wanted us to stay together," she said softly. Ariam nodded, but her heart was heavy. "I don't know if I can." Spring came to Seoul slowly. Cherry blossoms unfurled along the streets of Mapo, petals drifting across the river where everything had begun. Ariam visited the old house one last time. Dust lay thick on the table, the photographs still lined along the wall. She picked up the one beneath the cherry tree, two little girls smiling, unaware of the years that would separate them. She placed it carefully into her bag. Outside, Hannah waited by the gate. "Are you leaving?" she asked quietly. Ariam nodded. "I need to go back to Toronto. For now." Hannah's eyes glistened. "Will you come back?" "Maybe. When I know who I am beyond what was taken from me." They stood in silence as petals fell around them. Hannah reached out and hugged her, tentative at first, then with trembling certainty. Ariam closed her eyes. The warmth felt both foreign and familiar. When they parted, she walked towards the station, the city humming softly behind her. The wind carried the scent of blossoms and memory. Finding her birth family had not completed her, it had broken her open. But in that breaking, something new began to breathe. And somewhere, in the mirror of the world, her sister's reflection walked beside her, quietly whole at last.